The story begins with a view of Huameng in Yongchuan City, where we see a muscular man hanging from the ceiling. Then we see a flashback where soldiers with guns are killing people. We are brought back to the real world as the man awakens. He frees himself from the ceiling and regrets that he was not able to kill himself. Back in the city, we see a news reporter announcing that strange creatures are invading the city. We see the man enter a mart when suddenly everyone starts screaming. The man looks up and sees people being attacked and eaten by monsters. He is forced to defend himself as the monsters attack him. He expertly fights off the monsters. The monsters attack him again, and he wonders if he is dreaming as he fights them off. He says that he has been wanting to kill himself for a while, but he doesn't want to die in a mart. The chapter ends with him killing all the monsters and seeing the whole mart destroyed. Next, we see that a boy is swinging a baseball bat fighting off multiple monsters. We find out that his name is Hyun-wook, and he's a high schooler who ditched his baseball practice and came to the mart for snacks when he got attacked by the monsters. Just as he thinks he will die, the monster attacking him gets hit by a frying pan, and we see the muscular man rush in and attack the monsters with a screwdriver. He takes down all the monsters and tells Hyun-wook to follow him if he wants to live. The man runs after he hears another roar, and Hyun-wook follows. They come face to face with a huge, gruesome monster who is attacking a family. The man jumps in and starts to fight off the monster with the baseball bat, but the monster is too strong. Suddenly, the monster roars, and no one can move. The monster throws the man onto the shelves and turns to face Hyun-wook. Then, we see something strange happening to Hyun-wook as he gets powers. Just as he readies himself, the man jumps on the monster and strangles him. He calls out for Hyun-wook to attack him, and together they defeat the monster. Next, we are told by Hyun-wook how 7 hours have passed since the attack, and the mysterious man's name is Tae-hoon. Hyun-wook thinks that Tae-hoon is not a normal person, and that he saved numerous people in the mart by expertly fighting monsters. Then we find out that the two of them, among others, are awakened beings, now as they have awakened their abilities, and not everyone can do that. We also find out that they can check their own and the monster's abilities through their phones. Tae-hoon became a leader among all the confused citizens and gave them all the information he could find. Just as he stands to give an update, a woman in a white coat who is also awakened starts questioning him. Tae-hoon tells her that they can repay him by giving him the magical orbs that are in the monsters' bodies. These are power-ups. Tae-hoon and the woman argue over whether they should leave the mart or not, and just then a huge monster bursts in and Tae-hoon readies to fight it. We see the monster and Tae-hoon fight, but he struggles to defeat it, so he tells Hyun-wook to get everyone out. Hyun-wook lands a hit, but then is brutally thrown onto the shelves. Tae-hoon worries that his energy is depleting and continues to fight the monster with his abilities and blows it up as well. Then he rushes to Hyun-wook, who appears to be healing well due to his abilities, and Tae-hoon tells him and An Sun-mi to get everyone out. As they evacuate the people, Tae-hoon continues to fight the monster. Hyun-wook fights off the monsters in their way and they go outside. The whole city is in ruins and Sun-mi finds a bus. Just then, the monster and Tae-hoon come crashing out. We see Tae-hoon and the monster continue to fight as Hyun-wook and Sun-mi rush to the bus. Tae-hoon rips off a stop sign and starts fighting the monster with it. They engage in a fierce battle where Tae-hoon lands multiple hits, but the monster doesn't die. The crowd marvels at Tae-hoon, and just as the monster attacks him, Sun-mi and Hyun-wook crash the bus into the monster. It doesn't kill it, but as the monster starts to lift the bus, Tae-hoon uses its distraction to attack it with his abilities. They drive the bus forward and together. The three of them kill the monster. Tae-hoon finds himself happy to be alive, and we see Sun-mi and Hyun-wook steps out of the bus. They are horrified as they see Tae-hoon open up the monster's corpse and eat its magical orb. They are fascinated yet a little terrified of him. Sun-mi calls him the devil incarnate. We see that Tae-hoon has gotten stronger, and even Sun-mi is strong. Sun-mi tells us that they collect important supplies, and everyone prepares to leave. They all went to the town hall after leaving the mart, where Tae-hoon tells the civilians that only he and the awakened would go on and they should stay there. The three of them left for the police station to get weapons, and they found the police officers dead. Sunmi finds a strange cup, and they find out that it's a holy grail that will help them heal. Sunmi manages to fill it up with her abilities, and it helps heal Tai-hoon's wounds. They find guns that have few bullets when suddenly they feel this intense pressure, and Sunmi and Hyun-wook collapse. Tai-hoon goes outside to check and finds a large flying monster passing them, and he turns back to see that Sunmi isn't breathing. He revives her with the Holy Grail, and they plan to rest in the station as Tai-hoon changes their plan. The chapter starts with Hyun-wook and the others killing low-level monsters, and they all eat the magical orbs. They hunt for weaker monsters so they can build up their strength. The scene cuts to the army fighting off a horde of monsters. The female lieutenant manages to hold off the weaker ones, but a large mud monster shows up, and their bullets and grenades have no effect on it. It breaks through their defense. Just as the lieutenant is about to be killed, Tae-hoon stops the monster with his powers, and he takes out all the low-level ones. Hyun-wook lands multiple hits on the mud monster, and Tae-hoon finishes it off by burning it and then punching it with his steel hand, surprising everyone. We find out that the lieutenant managed to rally the last soldiers on the base, but was losing hope just as Tai-hoon showed up. He tells her to replenish the weapons and gather the rest of the troops. He tells Sunmi to heal the soldiers and Hyun-wook to help out. The lieutenant is very confused as to who this man is, but he rushes to kill the other monsters. We see Tai-hoon expertly take out the monsters and even save her life. Just then, a strange monster shows up with its goons, and Tae-hoon rushes forward to attack. He takes out the low-level ones, and as the lieutenant shoots the strange monster, it blocks the bullets with a force field and shoots them back at her. Tae-hoon throws a knife loaded with his power at it and kills it. They take back the barracks, and we see the lieutenant shocked at the abilities of the three. In a conversation between the Lieutenant Suji and Tai-hoon, we find out that he knows of her from before, and even then she was warned that he is a dangerous soldier. He asks her to gather the soldiers. The chapter starts with Tae-hoon announcing that he wants the remaining soldiers to be part of his organization, and the lieutenant asks what would they gain from this. He answers that he will give them all the information he has. The lieutenant tells us how Hyun-wook explained everything about the awakened and the monsters to the soldiers, and we find out that other than the three, the lieutenant and two other awakened are among them. We see that these monsters are called goblins, and we see how powerful Tae-hoon has become by eating the orbs. We see Sunmi make a special healing pill out of the materials from the monsters. They all change into military uniforms, and through the help of a soldier called Sung-hoon, they name the organization as MAC. He helped them decide that the next important location was to be the archery museum. They all leave in a huge trailer and see smoke coming out, and Tae-hoon leaves the trailer. He tells Sunmi to get ready to heal and Hyun-wook to take out the dog-like monsters while he plans to go after the head wolf. They both attack the monsters, and Tae-hoon fights off the head wolf. He lands multiple hits and shots, and he manages to kill it and eats its magic crystal that gives him a huge power-up, amazing all the soldiers. He goes inside the museum with Sunmi and Sung-hoon. They find a rare arrow antique, but Sung-hoon remembers that there is more treasure here and finds Golden Cup 3 that will help them see future disasters before they occur. Everyone rests, and they are amazed by Hyun-wook's skills as he worries for his loved ones. As they turn to leave, they see a huge crowd of civilians approaching them. Tai-hoon takes them inside, but tells them that they won't be staying with the civilians and is criticized for it. We are told that Tai-hoon taught the others useful skills in just a day. Hyun-wook and the others tried to convince him as Hyun-wook knew a girl in the crowd, and Sunmi argued that these people could be useful. He ended up agreeing, but he gave them the task to cut off the monster's body parts in 30 minutes. 22 people passed this task, and Sung-hoon thinks that Tai-hoon planned all this on purpose, so that they would cooperate. He notices how the golden cup filled up by itself, and Tai-hoon drinks it and collapses. In his dream, he sees the city in ruins and Sung-hoon. He helps Sung-hoon escape and tells him to relay a message to Commander-in-Chief Hyun-jun. He is confused by his own words when the flying monster from before lands before him. He wakes up and tells them that he predicted his death and that it's probably in 3 to 5 years. They all plan to change this future. The chapter ends with bull-like monsters rushing towards them, and Tae-hoon stops them with his telekinesis power and asks Hyun-wook to kill them. The chapter starts with a discussion between Tai-hoon and the others about another organization that is troubling them. He decides to go alone to take them out. He tells them that if he isn't back by 5 the next day, Suji will take full command. We see this other organization and find out that the yellow-eyed demon is in the area, and also that the scouting group went after some woman who tried to escape them. We see a group of people killed by Tai-hoon, and he slams into the hideout of this organization and takes them all out. He questions one of the members and finds out that there are 50 people, 60 sacrifices, and their boss is on the top floor. We also find out that the yellow-eyed demon is in a station where no one can defeat it. We also find out that their leader started sacrificing people to the demon and is now not a human as he consumed too many cores. Tai-hoon kills the man and decides to go after the leader. We see Tai-hoon take down the gang members easily and finds the fire-breathing leader of the gang. Tai-hoon shoots him, but he survives as his outfit protects him. The leader breathes fire again and hides behind a wall. He recognizes Tai-hoon, and we find out his name is Lee Jin-sung. He stalls and buys time by telling Tai-hoon how he fought the monsters. Just then, his gang members come to find him, and he orders them to attack Tai-hoon. The members call him Lord Messiah, and as they jump to attack, Tai-hoon isn't there. Tai-hoon appears from behind and easily kills the leader and the rest of them. He gets the sword of the Imperator and a flaming gourd that helps breathe fire. The Mac arrives and they tell the Messiah followers that their awakened are to work for Mac now, and they are to give 40% of their crystals to Mac. They agree after Tai-hoon scares them, and Tai-hoon tells Mac how they will go after the yellow-eyed demon in a few days. We see that Mac prepares for battle. Sunmi is in charge of a medical group, and Suji and Hyun-wook will be in charge of the attack team and clearing out monsters. We see these two expertly taking out big monsters, and the normal soldiers call them inhumane and are in awe. Next, we see Tai-hoon standing over multiple dead monsters, and we see his outstanding stats. He lets out a howl that awakens the yellow-eyed snake demon, and it slithers to Tai-hoon. Tai-hoon provokes it and leads it to a specific place where the rest of the team is stationed with anti-tank rifles. We find out that the plan was to get the demon in one place, and the rest, including Hyun-wook, will shoot it with the rifles, while Tai-hoon holds it in place for 10 seconds. Tai-hoon struggles to hold it in place as the rest shoot it with the rifles. They are shocked to find out that it does not affect the snake as it rushes to attack them. Just then, Tai-hoon steps in with the sword and lands a hit. He is barely able to dodge its attacks, and the chapter ends with an injured Tai-hoon facing the snake. Then we see Tai-hoon jump straight into the mouth of the snake as the others scream for him. Hyun-wook is stopped from attacking as the soldier reminds him of Tai-hoon's order to retreat if he dies. Just as the monster turns to attack the others, we see that Tai-hoon is still alive inside the snake and uses his abilities to attack its heart. Just as it opens its mouth to kill the others, it falters and roars. Just then, Tai-hoon comes out of it and they all are shocked to see him alive. He rallies them all to attack it together. As the others attack it, Tai-hoon goes and slashes its head with his sword, but even that doesn't kill it, and Tai-hoon is slammed into a building. However, he is alive and manages to kill the snake. He eats the core of the snake and gets new abilities like a new yellow eye and strength. They go back to their base and everyone celebrates the win. After the fight, they moved their HQ to the city hall and collected all the important parts from the snake. We are also told that only monsters have cores, not any awakened. Sung-hoon suggests Gab-su to strengthen their defenses, and that someone named Whale collects important artifacts. Tai-hoon decides to move immediately and takes Hyun-wook and Sung-hoon with him. On the way to Whale's storage, Tai-hoon thinks that he's lucky to be alive and that monsters have levels according to their eye color, and he wants to get stronger. Then we see him easily taking out multiple monsters. They look through Whale's collection and Tai-hoon smashes in a secret wall, and they find the important artifacts there. They take only those 9 and leave. Back at HQ, the others are amazed at how many monster remains they brought back. In the meeting room, we find out that one of the artifacts helps them pinpoint the location of monsters. Next, we see that a lot of gangs and hunters come to the HQ from all over the country to be part of MAC, and they all are very intimidated by Tai-hoon. Then, we see that Tai-hoon tests the crowd by asking them if he can have their arms. Only one man and one woman step forward. He only selects these two. The two recruits are offered weapons, and Sung-hoon tells him that they are ready at the workshop. Suddenly, Suji calls for Tae-hoon and tells him that the monsters near them have started moving, and Tae-hoon decides that they will fight the level 3 monsters. Then, they visit the workshop for the equipment and we meet Gabsu. We see that he has made 20 of the special suits from snake leather and that he can make 90 more. Tae-hoon distributes the new weapons to Suji and Hyun-wook and the two recruits, Soo-young and Jung-hwan. Next, we see Tae-hoon having another dream of the future where Sunmi tells him to change his future as he lies dying. As they discuss the dream, they also discuss the 4 out of 6 attainable relics that they can get. The chapter ends with them discussing that, in the end, it will be humans against humans. We see Tae-hoon giving Jung-hwan and Soo-young orders to recycle weapons and tell Suji and Hyun-wook to use the map to kill the monsters one by one. He leaves Sunmi and Sung-hoon in charge. Outside, we see that many alligator-like monsters have gathered with their leader. Tae-hoon notices that even keeping the skull of the snake makes no difference and signals for the others to attack. As the fight starts, we see the head alligator breathe fire on the others, and this is when Tae-hoon steps in. The scene shifts, and we see Hyun-wook and Suji fight off a monster. Back to Tae-hoon, we see him fight the head alligator, and he ends up cutting it in half. The chapter starts with Tae-hoon beating up a gang and facing its leader. He easily overpowers him. We are taken back 3 days, and we find out that the mission was a huge success. Suddenly, Sung-hoon rushes in and tells Tae-hoon that a green dot, monster, has disappeared in Gwangmyeong. Tae-hoon decides to check it out himself instead of waiting for someone strong to kill him. Back to the present, he obtains information from the leader that a special forces team came in a week ago. Just as Tae-hoon is analyzing the situation, the leader attacks him and Tae-hoon kills him off easily and leaves. He goes to the train station and finds the team dead and feels a strong presence. He also finds many important relics and weapons. Just then, he sees the monster appear before him. Back at the HQ, the others are surprised that the green rank monster is dead, and they discuss their opponent, Capital Defense Army. Tae-hoon receives a message that there is a rendezvous at Gimpo Airport, and Tae-hoon decides to meet them. Then, we are taken to Liantian City in China, where we see a group of Chinese soldiers attack the monsters there. It starts with 2 twin women playing instruments. Back at the HQ, we see soldiers suffering from collecting the skins of the monsters. We are told how with the help of some people, they now have electricity and they prepare for battle. They even came up with a hierarchy for Mac. In a dream, Tae-hoon sees the same twin Chinese girls waiting to kill him, and he doesn't have hands and gets stabbed by Osebum. Tae-hoon calls him a traitor and that they are from the 6-headed snake. He wakes up and they all discuss whether they should go to the airport or not. Sung-hoon recognizes a sword that Tae-hoon shows him, and they decide to go as they need information. The chapter ends with Hyun-wook telling Tae-hoon that he managed to kill a level 2, and they share a cute moment, and we see the airport covered in snow.
Hey, wait a sec. Are you subscribed? We'll make sure you do, and hit that notification button.
The chapter starts with the teams of the defense force gathered in one place, and they mention how Team C is missing, and Major Oh Sebum isn't there as well. We are introduced to the commander Yoo De-hyun. Then, we see a confrontation between Mac and the rest. After hearing that Tae-hoon is there, the commander agrees to meet him. They talk about negotiations, but the commander is unwilling to listen to his demands. At this, Tae-hoon tells him that he can probably take out half of his men right there, and the commander knows he probably can. Just then, we see the guy who killed Tae-hoon in the future appear, and he is a Major Sebum. He recognizes Tae-hoon as the one who rules Bucheon, and at this, the commander suggests a fistfight between the two. The chapter ends with him provoking Tae-hoon. Then, we see the epic fight between Tae-hoon and Sebum as they go head-to-head for a while, amazing all the soldiers present as they thought Sebum was invincible. As they talk amongst themselves, the commander tells them that Tae-hoon was the only survivor in his unit and that his existence is known to a few high-ranking officials for impossible jobs that require only one person. We see Sebum wonder why he isn't able to defeat Tae-hoon with his higher stats, and within moments Tae-hoon lands multiple hits, and Sebum passes out. The commander and Tae-hoon talk about Tianhuan City and its destruction, and Tae-jun senses he is lying about number 1. He tells the commander to reach out to Ji Guihoi for help and even offers himself. They plan to meet 15 days later, and as he leaves, the commander sends 2 soldiers after Tai-hoon. Tai-hoon easily notices them. Tai-hoon tells them that they monitor him for a month, or he will lock them up, making the commander uneasy, something he wants to avoid. Back at HQ, we are told that the 2 followers are called Yuri and Kong Lin. They discuss Tianshuan City and how it is in control of the defense force and the Six-Headed. Tai-hoon doesn't plan to beg for relics. Then we see Yuri and Kong Lin admire the way Mac functions and compare it to the harsh conditions in the army. The scene shifts to the team fighting a bunch of monsters when a level 3 appears, and they all move back to let Tai-hoon take care of it. Back at the airport, we see Sung-hoon and Tai-hoon negotiate for relics, and the commander decides to give them one out of their list in exchange for a task. As they leave, Tai-hoon warns the commander not to shoot him if he doesn't want to die. Next, we see Yuri and Kong Lee report Tai-hoon's performance to the commander, who struggles to believe them. He wants to use Tai-hoon's achievements to further his influence and instructs the 2 to stay with Tae-hoon and bring her back if he finds her. Then we see Sung-hoon and Tae-hoon travel back, and the task is to retrieve the daughter of the U.S. ambassador so that the army can use her to stop the ambassador from calling the USFK to take over Korea. They will get a national treasure if they succeed. They reach Incheon, and Tai-hoon and Yuri take out multiple monsters. Then we are shown a meeting scene from the past where Tai-hoon decides to take one of the followers with him. Back in Incheon, we see a struggle between civilians who are armed. Yuri protects the people in the barricade, and Tai-hoon blows up the tanks using his firepower. After Tai-hoon takes care of the plunderers who tell him they are just following orders, he meets the leader of the survivors, a priest. The priest Baek tells him how the city is under the control of a green-eyed monster, and how they survived thanks to God. He has a cross that is a special relic. He also leads them to the only surviving soldier, who tells them that their job was to make sure the families of the politicians were alive or dead, but they were overpowered by monsters and traitors among them, so he left with the relic he had. He hands over the relic to Yuri. Then we see Yuri tell Tai-hoon the truth about her mission. She tells him she wants his help to defeat the traitors as she doesn't trust the army anymore, and he agrees. Then we see the head plunderer and his boss talk about their failure, and just as they are talking, Tae-hoon comes in and takes them all out. He thinks about the complicated politics and conspiracies that are going on and asks Yuri to gather the team. Next, we see Tai-hoon test out the relic he got last chapter and deems it useful. We find out that the gold cap relic was stolen by the traitors, but this earthenware was left. Then we see that 700 Mac Guild members have arrived, and Tai-hoon plans to take out all the monsters. In their meeting, Tai-hoon assigns all the leading members their tasks, and we see the team expertly take out their designated monsters. He decides to face a level 3, 3 level 2s, and a 100 grunts himself using the earthenware relic. The fight begins, and he takes out the level 3 with his fire attacks, and the relic takes out the rest. Back at City Hall, Tai-hoon announces that Incheon is now under the Mac Guild, and that he plans to go to Yeonjong Island to hunt the green-eyed monster that appeared there. Tai-hoon and Yuri let the commander know about the traitors in the defense army who stole the relic. We are shown 2 suspected traitors that are Major General Kisu and head of the military police. The commander wonders who is right and is shocked at how quickly Tae-hoon took over Incheon. He wants to tell him about the LNG production there and how it will make Tae-hoon very powerful. Tae-hoon asks him to not bother with the traitors right now as they are in higher positions than him. Then we see the Major General and head of the military police talk about Tae-hoon's influence in Incheon and how it alters their plans. They discuss his ability to take out the monster in Yeonjong. They discuss politics when Saibum appears with a letter from Mr. Mao. Then we see Tai-hoon jump from a boat into the sea, and we are shown how he tells them to retreat if he doesn't return in 4 days. Next, we are told how Tai-hoon took out hundreds of monsters and then eventually fought the green-eyed monster. He uses the earthenware relic to fight it and shoots it from afar as well. Tae-hoon attacks it himself with a sword to its head, and the monster crashes. Back at the bridge, Suji and the others wait for him to return as the green dot on the map is still there. Yuri tells her that even Tai-hoon might not be able to defeat the monster and that even the previous teams failed. She asks her to have faith in him and follow his orders. Back at the fight, we see Tai-hoon's sword get stuck in the monster's head, and he is forced to do hand-to-hand combat. Tai-hoon uses his telekinesis and his fire powers to kill the monster and fights it with his bare hands. The chapter ends with the monster falling from the impact of his steel punch. Tai-hoon kills the monster and returns. Soo-young wonders how he managed something that no one could. He tells Soo-ji to set up the city hall for the people and take them to the Daichuan airport. The team is gathered in the Daichuan airport as Tai-hoon dreams of the future again. This time he brings back a list of things to stop, including things like stopping Zhao Ying's death and stopping the nuclear meltdown. They figure out that when Tai-hoon died, the nuclear plant hadn't melted and they suspect the six-headed to be behind this. Tai-hoon is also concerned about the bombings he saw, and he plans to stop Zhao Ying's assassination. We are also introduced to a female survivor who wanted to meet Tai-hoon. Next, we see Tai-hoon meet the commander, and Tai-hoon tells him that he has Kate and wants him to arrange a meeting with Colonel Ren. He plans to go to the dangerous Buyo City. Kate and Tai-hoon go to Buyo City and kill numerous monsters. She is powerful. We are shown how Tai-hoon takes her with him as a bargaining chip, and he plans to get the incense burner relic. On their way, he stops the car as he hears someone getting killed, and we see a bunch of gangsters kill a man. Tai-hoon easily kills them off and takes the Gandol sword from them. Kate talks to the dying man, and he warns them to stay away from the Messiah. Then we see a gang of people transporting cargo, and Tai-hoon observes them. We see the survivors of the city ask for his help and tell him about the Messiah's hierarchy and how the cult oppresses them. They find out that the incense burner is used by the leader. The chapter ends with the Messiah leader being warned about their groups being attacked and a revolt being led by a woman with blonde hair, Kate.
Hey viewers, subscribe for more.